Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at CachyOS. CachyOS is an Arch-based Linux distro, and it happens to be one of my favorites. I think it's right up there with Arco. CachyOS is something that I took a look at a while back, probably about a year ago, and I just loved it. In fact, I even daily drove CachyOS, and when I finally moved on to a different distro, it was only because I wanted a change of scenery. It was one of those rare distros where I just had no issues at all, really. So that I thought was really fantastic. And David Wayne reminded me in a comment how cool CachyOS was just the other day when he was mentioning that the KDE flagship version that he was using was just absolutely fantastic and also features, of course, Plasma 6. So I thought now's a great time to take a look at it because a new ISO just came out for CachyOS on the 13th of March. What perfect timing. So I'm out here at the CachyOS website right now, and I'm just going to hit this download button here because I just can't wait to get it. And so if we go here, it'll take us over to our download page, and you can see that the KDE Plasma flagship is there by default, but look at that big list of other desktops that are available. And if I remember right, you can access those right in the installer. And here on the drop down, we can select our URL, and I'm just going to go with direct. I'm a direct approach kind of guy, so let's do that. And so now we're downloading it, and I'll load it in as soon as it's done. Okay, and now I'm out at the SourceForge page here. And the reason I'm out here at the SourceForge page is because I noticed that the ISO that I was downloading was actually from February. It was like version 240 or something like that. So I'm assuming February 24th of this year. And I remember a new ISO coming out just a couple of days ago, which was March 13th as of the time of this video. And so I popped out here on SourceForge just to take a double look. And yes, there is a newer ISO. So for some reason on the website, they're still using the February 24 version. Now, granted, there might be some reason, there could be some issue with the new ISO and they felt that they didn't want to put it on the website yet. I'm not really sure, but I really got to have the new one. So I'm here at the SourceForge, and I'll put the link to both versions. So we'll have the website version link and then this SourceForge direct link. That way you have a choice there on which one you want to use, but I want to try out the latest and greatest. I think that they just haven't had a chance to update their link yet, so I'm going to go with the newer one here. And part of the reason I think that is because if you go out to DistroWatch has the link out to the latest ISO as well. So I'm thinking that they probably just didn't have a chance to update it there on the website. So I'm going to download this, load it in, and I'll be right back again. Okay, here I am. I got the live version here loaded in. So I'm just going to press enter and we'll boot into the live desktop environment and see how it went. Or goes. Not went. What am I saying? So here we are, we're booting in, and you can see the CachyOS stuff loading in as we speak. And this should just take a second here. It usually takes longer to load in the live image than the installed image because it's got to cache a lot of stuff here, but this is Cachy, so it's made for being fast. And there's our KDE splash screen coming up, so it looks like we're just about to get into the desktop. Glad to see that. And there we go. So here's our welcome to CachyOS and a really beautiful background loading in. I like that as well. Very nice. And then down here, of course, we got our panel, and it looks like a beautiful wallpaper here. I really like that too. That's really nice. Beautiful color scheming there. Stop peeking. Okay. I won't peek anymore. So let's get right to it. I'm going to go ahead and launch the installer. So I'll just click this guy right there. And once we launch that, then it gives us two options here. We got offline and online, which is the recommended. So I'm going to go with the recommended. I'm going to go with Grub for our installer. I mean our bootloader installer. And so this should launch our Calamares installer here. And should be popping up any second now. And then here we got the install log. And so that'll be kind of running in the background so we can keep good tabs on what's going on during the install if we have to refer to it. But we shouldn't. I'm going to hit next because that auto-populated just fine, and same here. Our region has been auto-detected, so I'm going to hit next. And next again. with our auto-detected keyboard. Here's where we do our disk partitioning, and I'm just going to go with erase disk. That's going to just automatically wipe out all the data. And XFS is selected by default, so I think I'll just change that to ButterFS. And for me, that works better. My other favorite, of course, is good old ext4, but I think ButterFX is good. And so here we can choose from all these different desktops. There's a gazillion desktops. I really love that. I'm going to stick with the Plasma, the flagship edition, but you got i3, Hyperland, LXDE, LXQ, Qtile, Sway, Wayfire. Wow! So I'm going to hit next. And then here are some things that are installed by default. And again, we got choices of desktop, but I'm going to stick with the defaults here. Don't want to complicate things, but I just love all the stuff they give you, and even printing support. So here I could check these two boxes if I was on a live machine rather than a VM. And then when we click next, we just hit our final level here. So I'm going to put in my username and password, and all the defaults are good. I want to leave this checked to use the same password for the administrator account. So I'm going to hit next. And then here's a summary of everything that we just did. And so that's always a good thing to look over if you want to make sure you did it right. And then we'll just hit install and install now. And then we'll let it do its thing. And there's that gorgeous pattern back there, and graphics, I like it. So I'm going to let this run, and I'll be back when it's complete. Okay, and it's all done. That was quick. So nice install. I'm just going to hit finish here, and then I'm just going to shut down, remove the ISO, and then boot back in, and I'll be right back. Okay, booting back in. Everything went smoothly, I can tell. And there's our login screen. Awesome. So I'm just going to type my password. And oh, by the way, down here we have our desktop sessions. By default, it's Wayland. You can also use X11, so your choice is still there. I know some distros like Fedora got rid of that, I think. But yeah, with Kachy, you don't have to worry. You can refer back to X11 if Wayland gives you a hard time, which it may. It does to me sometimes. But I haven't really noticed any issues on KDE, though. Of course, I haven't done some of the things like in the media sense that give me issues like in Hyperland. So yeah, I would probably still have them. So here we got our welcome screen. We got our apps and tweaks there. And a lot of these look like kind of more advanced tweaks. So I think I'm really good with all the defaults, but you can enable your Bluetooth if you have Bluetooth activated. Either your system update, which it updated during the install since we installed live, so we're good. Remove DB lock is nice when you're installing an application from your terminal and for some reason your Pac-Man is locked up. That's a nice graphical way to unlock it. And then you can rank your mirrors and so forth. So all nice there. And then applications, we got our kernel manager if you want to update your kernel, and also the package installer. So that's nice. CachyOS has their own package installer. Clicking on install apps will take you to the package installer as well. And so this is really nice. And it's probably also located under system. And I'm assuming there's probably another one too. There's our CachyOS package installer. And I think if we go down here, there should be something like Octopi, or there it is. Yes. So Octopi is the other alternative installer. Personally, I like the Kachy installer better. It's actually a little quicker. It's basically a front end to Pac-Man and Paru, I believe, and very handy. VLC is already installed, but if you want to just add some things right out of the get-go here, we could go in here and choose some additional applications. Here's a bunch of video editing apps like OBS Studio. Well, that's more of a streaming app, but you know, KDE Live and all that. And then here we got our Office suite. So by default, they have LibreOffice, WPS Office, Only Office. Nice. So yeah, I would probably just go with this. And of course, if there's some other Office program, you can always just use Octopi to find it, or find it in the terminal there using Pac-Man search. But I'm going to go with LibreOffice. I'm going to just install that since we're in here, and I'm going to go with the latest version, which is LibreOffice Fresh. And maybe add a browser too. Kachy browser is the default browser in here, which I think is Firefox reskinned and branded for Kachy, which I like. But if for some reason you want the Firefox, it just says Firefox, you could click it here or add in Chromium. In a more realistic scenario, I would probably just add a different browser like Chromium or Brave or something. But just for fun, let's pop in Firefox here just to kind of compare them. I'm pretty sure it's a reskinned Firefox, so they should be the exact same versions and everything. But Cachy probably has some extra extensions installed as opposed to Firefox. So I just hit yes for everything here. So now it'll install Office and Firefox both. And as you can see, it's running the terminal now, which is nice. So you can just kind of see everything populating in here. Now, like I said, I don't know the background info on this app here, the CachyOS app, but I think it's a front end to Pac-Man and probably Paru as well. And so there we go, backed out of there, and let's just make sure it's installed. There's Office, so now we have it. Excellent. And Internet, we have our Cachy browser and Firefox web browser, which I think are the same if my memory serves me correctly, which it does sometimes, a couple times a year. Okay, never. Just kidding. So here we go, and this is our Cachy browser here. And yeah, that looks like Firefox to me. So excellent. And I think they made a fine choice there. Firefox is probably my favorite browser overall. I do like Brave and Chromium and so forth, but in an overall sense, Firefox is really my favorite. So Cachy, in my opinion, made a great choice. So I went to help and about here, and yes, you can see by the version there, it's 123.0.1. And before I got in there, I saw a reference to Mozilla actually in the settings here. So that was the other way I could tell that was, or verify that that was Firefox. Of course, seeing the extension icons up there in the upper right corner kind of helps too, because I recognize those. Here's our Firefox. And as you can see up there in the upper right corner, the icons are the same for your extension settings and so forth. So this is the same browser, and it should be the same version, I'm pretty sure. And I guess I could just skip all that startup stuff there. Don't really need that. And there we go, our standard Firefox homepage. And like I said, if I was daily driving this and I wanted to add another browser, I'd probably just put in Chromium or something, or Brave. But personally, I would just stick with the Cachy browser myself, so I probably wouldn't even bother. Although there are some apps that I need Chrome in. There's a couple of things that require Chrome, so I would probably install the Chromium as well. And then, of course, we can theme and all that good stuff. So if we go over here to Help and About, it should be also 123.0.1, which it is, so we're good. And there's really no logical reason it would be a different version, of course. So if we go here and just kind of look quickly at our different applications, you can see a lot of things installed. And LibreOffice, I'm just going to check the theming on this real quick. And that's looking good. I like the bar. That looks like the Breeze Dark theme. Nice. And if you want to change that theme, that's my favorite. So that's what normally I would stick with probably. But under Tools and Options and View, we got the theme settings here for our icons. And so we got Calibre and Sukapura. That's a nice alternative. When you apply here, that'll color your icons up a bit. And that possibly could become my new favorite there after Breeze Dark, because that really is a beautiful theme. I like the colors. It kind of makes it look nicer overall, I guess, just given that color. And I like colors anyway. And then here we got our alternatives. I can go down here, right click, and then show alternatives. And we got our application launcher, which is our default, and then application menu, which is a more minimal version. And so that takes up less room if you like something more minimal. I kind of noticed though, under show alternatives, there used to be a full screen version too that kind of looked like a GNOME, where you would have icons that took up the full screen, and you had like a separate widget area as well. That doesn't seem to be there anymore. I wonder if they got rid of that in Plasma 6. Interesting. Well, so yeah, that's definitely gone. That's kind of surprising. I kind of like that full screen, but the default there is good too. So I'm good with that. And then here we got show alternatives for our widgets over here. and we got our window list, and by default I think we're using icons only. Not really sure, it's not saying, but like if I click Windows list, no, well then, yeah, it changes your whole bar. I wasn't expecting the taskbar to come flying over. So I'm going to right click and select edit mode, and then come back over here, right click, and then go back to show alternatives. And I think I'll switch that back over to icon only. You could add a spacer in there to kind of push that back, but I like the icons only better anyway. And that's the default as far as I know. So I'm just going to be good with the default. And back in edit mode, we got our panel settings too. So we can set our position for our panel. Like we could have that snug to each side if it wasn't full screen or full width. And then we can set our alignment for center or left or right, justify, and then our width. And right now it's full width going all the way across the screen. And also it is floating, so our style is floating, but when you click on it, it'll change it to a docked. But I like the floating, so I'm going to go with that actually, instead of attached to the bottom, which is kind of cool. I like the style. We can also adjust our height here, make it thinner or thicker. I like the default though. I'm just going to stick with 40 there as the default size. So that's nice. And then we can add widgets. So if I want to put, say, maybe a weather widget down there, I can go up here and just type in weather, and it's not available. Oh, that's right, because this is Plasma 6, and there's a lot of widgets that aren't actually updated yet to the Plasma 6. So what I would recommend is to just download it using Paru. So I just open up my KRunner here, Alt space, and typed in my console. So I'm just going to go in here and do a Paru something. Plasma 6, maybe widget. Let's try that. Plasma 6 widget. See what we get. Or weather. How about just Plasma 6? That'll give us more to choose from. There we go. Plasma 6 applets - weather. Nice. Okay, so that's number 16. I'm going to choose that. Proceed to review. I should have said no. Rats. Well, I'll hit Q here to get out. And just say yes to accept that. Authenticate. And it continues on as if nothing happened. So there we go. So that's going to go ahead and build the weather widget, and then hopefully that'll show up in our Plasma. So apparently there is a weather widget that's updated for Plasma 6, which I kind of suspected there would be. But typically I would probably want to look in here first before doing a search through the widget dialog, because you might end up with some apps that aren't updated yet and they won't work. And I think Mustafa pointed that out to me. Okay, so now typing in weather, I got my weather widget. Beautiful, and it's showing up down in the lower right corner. Nice. So here we are, and we got 55 degrees Fahrenheit here. Excellent. And I'm just going to slide out of the way. There we are. That's better. And nice detail on the weather. We can see for the next few days, it's going to be quite nice and even getting warmer. Excellent. And so if you want to change settings in here, we can do configure, and maybe we could change our units to Celsius and C for centigrade. And then that will change that. And when you hit apply, then your units will be changed if you don't like the Fahrenheit and it didn't change. Okay. Well, maybe I got to log out and log back in, or it didn't save it. Let me just take a quick look here. It did save it. So it did retain that. So I guess that's what I would have to do, is I'm assuming I'd log out and back in. Maybe I'll try that real quick. And I'm back in. See, that was quick. I logged out and logged back in, and now we're at 15 centigrade. So much better. And it's going to go down to 9. Yeah, that's okay. And moving on here, under settings, our system, here we got some more stuff to look at. And the usual stuff, but yes, it does have BTOP in here. That's kind of cool. I like the BTOP++. This is pretty cool, very graphical, and has a ton of information in here. It looks like we're using about 1.6 gigs of RAM here. That's kind of high, actually. That could be because I'm in a VM, possibly. I know when I load in Plasma on a VM, for some reason, I always get high usage. And so I'm pretty sure I can attribute that to the VM. However, if you're running it on hardware like David is, and you're still getting high usage, let me know in the comments. But I know from my own experience, it's typically the VM. So I would say probably on hardware, that's probably going to be somewhere around 650 to 700 megabytes would be just kind of my guess. If I was just going to throw out a WAG. And so also under system, we got our Octopi. And that was what I was referring to earlier, was the Octopi versus the CachyOS installer. So this is the other GUI installer that you can use. So if you need to refer to a wider range of software, this is another option you can pop into and take a look at some other software or even alternatives that you didn't see right off the bat on the Cachy. And a few more steps here in Octopi, though. Here's Inkscape, and I found my result. And so in here, if I remember right, to install it, you can just make that bigger. I think we have to right-click on that and select install. Or maybe we can just directly apply it. I can't remember. It's been a while since I used it. So yeah, not clickable. So I got to come over here, actually. But then you got your other options, your updater and all that. But let's right-click and then select install. And then here it gives us our optional dependencies that we can do. And I typically like to select those when I install something. I think that actually is kind of handy to do that. And I like the fact that that feature pops up. So yes, let's pick that. So I'm going to go back in there and just kind of check these guys. Just to have them. And then I'm going to hit OK. And then select the apply. And then go with yes on the confirm. And then authenticate. Actually, it'd be kind of nice if it prompted you to authenticate first when you first launch it. And then that way, it wouldn't bug me. But then again, I don't think it'll authenticate per app. So if I install something else, that should be a one-off thing. So maybe that's not so bad. So again, you got the little console in there, and it's easy to kind of monitor the progress. And so if I go up here to graphics, there it is. Inkscape is installed. Excellent. So that takes care of that. Let's take a look at our settings and see what we got in here. So if I go in our settings, system settings, we can see by default we have our different global themes there. The Breeze and Breeze Dark. And Dark by default, which I like. And then clicking specifies the item. So double click is your default, which is, I think, a fairly recent change in KDE because it used to be single click. So I like that. And then our mouse settings, touchpad, and screen edges. And the screen edges are kind of cool. I like that, actually. Pop up here in the corner. I forgot. What's the corner do? Let me open up another window so we can kind of... Okay, puts it in the corner. But here you got, also it shows that you can maximize it by sliding it up against the top. And then also drag to the either right or left side, and it will tile it over there. And same over here, pop it on this side, and now you have two windows tiled together perfectly. So the tiling feature I think is really cool. I like that. And when you move it, it goes back to floating and its original size before you tiled it. And then of course back on top, full screen again. Very good. So that's really actually kind of nice little feature. I really like their tiling stuff. And then switch desktop on edge. I think that's like if you drag the window to the edge, it'll switch over to another desktop. But yeah, I don't know if I switched over or not. I don't think I did because Dolphin's still there. So yeah, that really didn't do anything, but maybe that's just my boneheadedness. Not something I would use anyways. I really wouldn't have any interest in switching desktops that way, but yeah, it's probably just me. I'm just doing something dumb, I'm sure. So let's pop back over to the main menu. Left-handed mode there, by the way, in case you want to, if you're a lefty. And then here's our keyboard. I like numlock turned on, which it is by default, so I'm glad to see that. Here's our sound settings. So this is handy to have if you're just needing to adjust your sound and mic inputs and all that. Display and monitor, 1920 by 1080 by default. Thunderbird, email client. And as you can see, our appearance and style is now in a different position here in 6, which I like. The organization is a little bit different here in your system settings. And here we got our system colors, and we can change that to pull our color scheme from the wallpaper, which I like. And let me reopen that because that should reflect, but it didn't. Strange. It seems to me that should be reflected kind of everywhere. Why not? Oh, I didn't hit apply. I always forget about that in KDE Plasma. You always got to hit apply when you're changing settings. Other desktops, a lot of them you don't have to really hit apply so often, so I kind of get out of that habit and I forget that you have to do that. But I love that accent. That's really great. I'm probably going to stick with that. But you can also use custom accent colors, like the first one there, the pinkish color, and then you got green here, which is nice. Excellent. Or you can choose from the palette and just choose a whole range of about 16 point some billion colors. Wow. Like the sea green, which kind of looks like the original there, except a slightly cooler blue, I guess. But I'm going to stick with pulling the color from the wallpaper. I always liked that feature. When that came out not too long ago, that instantly became kind of a favorite for me, is to have it pull the color theme from the wallpaper. Then we have our Plasma style. So like, for example, if you want to choose something else, like this guy, the CachyOS Nord, for example, you could pop over here and then you get a different style change. And so these all just kind of give you little different style changes there in your menu and background somewhat. And then here we got our window decorations. So this all controls our top part of our windows. And then we got our icons, and by default we're using Breeze Dark, which is good for me. Of these that are in here, Breeze Dark is probably my favorite choice. And then cursors also you can choose from. Back to icons. I forgot to mention, you can also get new icons from the internet. So we can pop up here and change recent to show highest rated first. And that way you can see like the coolest ones first, at least as far as popular opinion goes. And so here we can choose from all kinds. And this also applies to other items too, like your themes and your cursors and all that. You can similarly get different ones and add to them in the same way. So it's all good. That's one really powerful feature of KDE that I really like. So here I'm just going to select the white Sur theme there, and I pick the orange just for fun, and just hit install, and it'll install it just like that. And so when I close out of there, now you can see that's one of our choices. So I could select that as an icon theme and hit apply, and then they'll turn orange. Except in Dolphin, you got to restart it. Oh, wow. Check that out. I've never been able to do that before. I've always had to restart it. Although my accent's still purple, but I think that's probably should be. However, now our icons are back, are orange. Cool. I'm going to go back to Breeze Dark, though, because I like the default. And I guess I have to mouse over them again to change them. Nope, that didn't work, except for the desktop. So I'm stuck having to restart Dolphin anyway. Dolphin never updates dynamically when you change icons for some reason. But that's okay. I won't lose any hair over it. Not that I have much to lose anyway. And then here's our system sound. So this is kind of nice. Ocean by default and free desktop. Cool. And then over here we got our splash screen. And so by default we're using the Breeze splash screen, but we also have none and this nice gradient screen. And if you hit Breeze and the little play button there, you can see the sample of the splash screen. That one's not working, and neither did the gradient one. So I'm not really sure why you can't preview those, but let's try none. None worked. It didn't show me anything. Excellent. Good job, none. So I'm going to hit apply, just make sure we're back on our default. And then here we got our login screen. So when you log in, these are what you see. And by default, the Breeze is the login screen that shows up by default, the theme. And I like that. That's kind of my favorite, so I would keep that. And wallpaper's in a different spot, it looks like, under appearance and style. So it's nice that wallpaper's got its own section now, or area, which I don't think it did before. And you can see lots of cool, there's the classic Pink Lady wallpaper that was in the version of CachyOS that I reviewed last time. So nice to see they got the classic wallpaper, and then they got this purple feather. Wow, that's really cool. That's a contender there. But I think from everything I'm looking at right here, I still like the default here, the Scarlet Tree. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to just kind of stick with the Scarlet Tree, I think. I like it. It's beautiful. And then we have, under apps and windows, we have window management. Here you can set your desktop effects and all that, like your wobbly windows and your magic lamp effects and so forth when you minimize and close windows. And then workspace, we got our general behavior. And here, again, we could set our double click or single click by clicking files or folders. And so that's another, in the main area, you can get that as well. And then our security and privacy settings. I like to turn off the lock screen here. Typically, I don't use it. However, if you're in a work environment or you have people around that you don't want in your computer, it's probably a good idea not to uncheck those. And then, of course, more of the usual settings that we've gone over many times before in KDE. Our language and spell check. I don't remember seeing that before. I wonder if that's something new. That's kind of cool. And then about this system, here we can see that we're running Plasma 6, of course, and the Qt 6 to match. And our latest kernel for Cachy, nice. Energy saving settings, users. Typically I would go into users and like to set a avatar, so you can just click on that avatar placeholder, and then it opens up all these. And so we can select pre-made avatars, or even just put in a custom. However, I like those colored pencils. That looks cool. So I'm going to go with that. Hit apply. And then that'll change our avatar. And then here we have auto start. CachyOS is the only one in the list at the moment. And then our different desktop settings for session and so forth. Then if we right click on our desktop and wallpaper, if we pop back in here, we can go to our icons here. I would just kind of want to show you the alignment settings and so forth for your icons, if you like having them either by row or by column. And our desktop folder is what shows up by default, which is typical, is what you would see. But if I wanted to add some desktop icons here, I could set the properties over here, and typically what I mess with is more the orientation than anything if I was going to change something. But let's drag the home out into the desktop and select link to it, and then that'll give us a shortcut right directly to our desktop. And there we go, and I'll just kind of push that off to the corner there. Nice. And if I hit that, then it opens up our Dolphin right into where we were, our home folder. And I'm doing the same thing with the trash. I'm just going to drag it out. So now you can see that the trash is right next to it. So we are in a horizontal orientation right now. And of course you can drag your icons anywhere you want, but they will stay in a horizontal orientation unless you change it in the settings here. So if I go up here and select left to right, or I mean the other one, top to bottom. Then hit apply. Now they're in the traditional orientation of top to bottom, and a lot of desktops have them top to bottom. I like the left and right, though. That was something they changed. I think it was this past year, last year in 2023, I think. I can't remember the version, but when they changed that orientation, I thought that was kind of nice, and I was good with it. To me, it just kind of makes things a little less cluttered if you have a lot of icons, which I don't normally. And then, of course, your different view settings here, your tree, your list, and then back to your icons. There you go. Nice. And I kind of like the icon look. Typically, I use the list view myself. And then we have our different panel icons. And so there's a firewall applet that's available. Our audio volume for setting your different volume settings there for your line in and your speakers. And then our network. That's all good. And then your hidden icons. So these are icons that are available. Different settings, brightness, and notifications and all that. And then we got our calendar. And KDE always has a beautiful calendar. Really like their calendar app. You can also look at months or year, which is great. And then you can scroll through your different months here. And today's March 15th. And then, of course, our weather app, which is always nice. And springtime, one of my favorite times of the year. Quite nice outside. I was just out taking a walk before I did this video. So I think I covered everything, and I think I'm ready for my 2.56 cents. Something I don't have too much of. Cents. No, actually, CachyOS. First, to David Wayne, thank you again for your comment on CachyOS, and I'm glad to see that you are enjoying it so much, and I can totally see why. This looking at CachyOS is kind of a reminder of why I liked it so much when I was using it. And when I was running CachyOS at the time, I think I was running XFCE and then a window manager at the same time. I don't recall what it was I was running now. It was a while ago, but it might have been Hyperland. It was either Hyperland or maybe BSPWM. However, I really liked the experience on CachyOS. I had no issues at all with it, even back then, which was, I think, a year ago. And like I said in the beginning of the video, the only reason I switched off of CachyOS, I think I went to OpenSUSE, if I remember right. But again, it was only for a change of pace and not because I was having issues or frustrated. So I would just highly recommend this to anybody that wants to use Arch. And Cachy is really great. Like I said, my two favorite Arch distros, I think, are Arco Linux and Cachy. And it would really be a tough call between the two. It would be a toss-up, actually, for me, personally. However, with that said, I hope this review was helpful, and if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. It helps the algorithm a lot, and the channel as well. And also, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.